Welcome back to Thrones Be the Game. We are back. Got my brother back on here with me. Sleep can't make it. Raven's on a hiatus or a sabbatical or whatever. I don't know what she's calling it. She's in our text group. She's alive though. As people say, is she alive? Yes, she is alive. She is alive. Man, Scott, how you been though, brother?
Man, I can't complain, man. I'm enjoying the new series so far. I have complaints, and so
we'll get into that.
Yeah.
All right. So, what was your first thought? Like, what are your overall thoughts so far on us entering this world and coming back to this space in this kind of this era of Targaryens?
So, it's a couple things. First thought is I find it interesting because if you actually go back and rewatch the original series, they give a lot of insight as to what happened. So they don't give themselves a lot of room to create a new narrative. That they have some very defined places where the story has to go. And I find it interesting some of the decisions they made to get there. For instance, and I don't recall the books very well on this part of it. So, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to say something that was a little bit inaccurate, but my recollection was that the princess is a lot younger. As a matter of fact, everybody is a lot younger in the books. And so I understand the narrative decision to make people older, to make the story a little bit more compelling and to draw out some things. But I think the writers did kind of a poor job in considering how those changes in age make some of the other stories play out.
Because they aged down the people in this, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Because like the king is like 35, 34, 35. Like,
exactly. And the prince is like 8 or 9. And the princess is like 8 or 9, and changing those ages. And then when we get to episode 2, I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail, but changing those ages have kind of cascading effects to how the story is actually being told. Now, the thing that, Corliss's wig is just, it's the wildest thing to me. Like I actually tried to get me one on Amazon and if I can find one, I'm gonna do the rest of these podcasts with that wig on, because he's sitting there with this blonde dreadlock wig on, straight face, expecting me to expect the stories and the things he say to be compelling and serious.
Have you tripped off that his old lady got dressed too? He didn't make his old lady get dressed. I twist out. And she white. He made her get a
I'm like, bro, you over here trying to give me the dramatic scene with this crazy wig on your head. Like, that's bananas. Absolutely.
Yeah, as much good wig makers there are out there, that's pretty sad. They couldn't get a better wig for that brother. And at this point, even if they got a good wig person, would, like, let's say season 2, they're like, okay, we was tripping. Like, would it look bad if they upgraded the wig, or are we already set with this wig, basically?
I think we stuck with this wig. I mean, like they could have used his real hair and just dyed it, and then it would resonate a little bit better. But he had to have the long hair. Like what? Why did he have to do that? Like nail pattern baldness doesn't exist in this world. Like,
well, for Targaryens, it doesn't.
Okay.
Because they're supposed to have that dragon blood in them, or whatever.
But he's not Targaryen. He's
not right. He's just Valyrian.
Yeah, Valyrian. Yeah, he's not Targaryen. So it's like, bro, what are you doing here?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, you got a good point there now, since you said he ain't Valyrian. Yeah, I mean, since he's not Targaryen. But overall, the show, man, it's been interesting because, like you said, they are putting in a box. I'm actually way more interested in this Jon Snow show that they developed.
I mean, so
because it's open land more. I feel like there's open land, like this open runway.
I hear you, and I don't disagree. I would say, just narratively speaking, a complaint I have about a lot of writers is that they create stories based upon books that people are really passionate about. People who've read books, done a lot of research, come up with their own conclusions, and then
envision it in their head the way they
exactly. Star Wars is the exact same thing. It's like they create these stories around things that we've already legislated and talked about for years. I think it would be safer for them to create a prequel show about old Valyria, or the Old Republic, because there's not as much concrete information. Like, there's some rough edges about what happens, but the day-to-day is different. And then that way it gives the writers a little bit more freedom to explore any storyline they want to, how they got there. They just have a destination. They don't necessarily have a roadway. They touch on things they've already set this roadway for, and then now they are kind of drawn into having to give this narrative circle that makes sense to us to get to these conclusions, because we're in situations where we know where the conclusion is, but how they get there doesn't necessarily make sense.
Yeah, like for instance, that all the Targaryens knew about the White Walkers at the beginning. That was the reason. Like that one was kind of like and then it's called A Song of Ice and Fire with his, what he named it.
Yeah,
it's like, but I will say that narratively, it kind of makes sense if you go to the old books about how. So the Starks, when the Starks were, they weren't even conquered. They just met with the original. I forgot. Is it original heirs too? The original Targaryen that came over. That he's talking about. He just met with Rickon Stark's like grandfather. Rickon Stark, the one that bent the knee to the princess. Met his grandfather. This in the open field, like brought people out the battle and came out and talked. And the theory is that he came to him and said, "I know about the White Walkers," and the people in the North have always believed in it. Right. And they think that's the reason that everybody was like, all right, cool. You understand? Okay, you got these dragons. All right, we ain't gonna battle. I'll bend the knee to you. As long as you let me have my area, don't come around fucking around up north. I'll come down every now and then for the Grand Council, but I'm up here and come through if these White Walkers come through. And that's the theory of why they say that the North was never technically conquered. Them and Dorne.
Yeah, and I can understand that, but that's the thing though. It's like when you give too much detail in one area, that detail winds up mattering. And then particularly, really, it just does, Yeah. And so
because people start thinking, why did the North not fight against Targaryens? And they just turned around and went back home. Like, right.
and dragons would be an effective countermeasure to White Walkers.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, I forgot Rickon Stark's father name, but he saw them dragons flying or heard about them burning. He's like, hold on. Let's broker this deal. Like, hold on now. We up here where ice is. You can do some things.
And particularly back in the day where they had more dragons available for them.
Yep.
So it's a much bigger deterrent, which is kind of my problem with episode 2.
Okay, let's jump into it.
I mean, I just really quickly, I didn't have a lot of problems with episode 1 other than the wig. I thought they was, I can accept whatever stage you set to me for the world that's happening here. Episode 2 became a little bit more problematic because they did this time skip, and they set the stage in the first episode by giving a narrator to say where exactly we were, but then they expect you to pick up on the subtleties of the time skip, like, oh, it's been 6 months since my wife died, and I think they could have spelled it out a little bit easier, and to explain that, hey, look, some of the conditions have changed. Now the captain of the King's Guard has died, and now they have to replace him. Some of those things they did kind of passively, I thought it could have been a little bit better explaining it. Now I do want to ask you a question. Do you want to go scene by scene, or do you want to give my overall?
No, we're just gonna go overall and kind of just. I got a couple of people, like, we're just gonna jump through a couple of characters, but just kind of give you an overall, and then we'll jump through a couple of characters.
Okay, so my biggest problem with episode 2 was that they took real world politics and sexism and chauvinism and applied it to a world where it doesn't make sense. So the Targaryens are in power not because they're men, or because anyone believes that God, somehow made the Targaryen bloodline to be, powerful and should rule. They rule because they control dragons. And so in a world where you rule because solely you can control dragons, and in the context of what we're watching it in, we already know that all Targaryens are built the same. Dany was fireproof, her brother wasn't. So the ability to be a Targaryen that's fireproof and can control the world's version of nukes is a much more important component than just being a man. And so to make everything about, sexism and the higher and the patriarchy seems a little bit, a little bit silly, because that wouldn't be the primary reason why the Targaryens are in power. Like, no one believes that the Targaryens are just better at ruling. It's like, well, no, they have a bunch of dragons. Most of our military might, the Air Force is all dragons. So we need somebody.
And we got a gang of ships.
Exactly. Yeah, like we're in the Stone Age, and so we have an Air Force that shoots fire. Like, that's the important part. Like being
to take out people. I mean, it's basically a tank in the air.
Exactly. and then now and then they made her older and they made her a dragon rider. So it's not like she's taking this passive form. She's, I don't know that dragons can fight or breathe fire. I just like flying sometimes. Like, she's clearly somebody who's been astute enough to learn to be a dragon rider.
Yeah, I mean, she used the Dracarys to burn her mother up in the first episode.
Exactly. That's a very
she's told Valerian to kill them.
Exactly.
Not kill them, but to burn their bodies.
Yeah, that's exactly. So she's a very effective weapon, and then they go, oh, because you're a woman, then we're not going to use this effective weapon. Like, it doesn't make sense. That's not how this world would have unfolded, and that's what I really have a problem with. And so they poorly write the female characters, the struggles that they face in the world that they would exist in, and then because those are struggles that women would face in our world, we're supposed to accept it. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. It just doesn't. Like the woman that can drive a dragon wouldn't necessarily be pouring beer or wine for people at 15. At 8, maybe, because she's not interested, maybe. This 8 years aren't really interested in the politics of her kingdom. But she's already been named heir 6 months later. Her mother's dead. Her brother's dead. The weight of the decision of her being heir would be important. And then now, again, 6 months later, they didn't expect her ever to have any interest on how the kingdom is ran. Like, they named her heir. Like, no one put any thought that, hey, she's sitting in a small council room with her father. She's named the heir. No one's had a side conversation.
And if anything, they need to school her up, where she could be like Trump tight on everything, just in case if we're keeping the narrative as a woman. Like, it's like being the first Black president. You got to be tight on every aspect of what's going on beforehand. Like,
exactly. Like, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, you would think that he would have maybe took her under his wing more.
Exactly.
But maybe that's something we're learning later, and I'm starting to maybe see it a little bit, is the fact that he's uncomfortable with making his own decisions. He lets other people make his decisions. Like, it's nothing wrong with listening to your hand of the king or any of your aides, but it seems like all his decisions are made either off of reactionary or because someone else told me to do it. And I didn't have any proactive decisions.
And I agree with it. That's the character they wrote, but it doesn't make sense in the world that we expect. The Targaryens are active fighters in these wars because they've
been peace though for so long, and you got to think he's raised in peace. He just want to keep the good times going. I want to keep it low key. Look, I don't want I think maybe he's still kind of paranoid about the White Walkers, because if this story is true, they say that. You got to think like, damn, these White Walkers could show up any minute.
Right. But that's what makes his decision-making process so more confusing. So, okay, fine. He's been in peace for a long time. He's still a Targaryen, so he's in power because of his ability to control dragons. He has dragon riders. His brother's a dragon rider. His daughter's a dragon rider. But he alienates both of them.
There's like 30 or 40 dragons at this time.
Right, but I'm saying that he alienates both of his 2 primary consuls. He alienates both of them because of whatever decisions he wants to make. And then he leverages the politics of Westeros over the actual force and the reason that keeps them in power. If dragons aren't around anymore, there's no reason to have a Targaryen king.
Hence in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, right. So it's like that's the reason you're in power. So how is it possible he loses sight of the reason he's in power and then diminishes, and because what he does, everything he does, he diminishes the power of the dragon. But then juxtapose that with whenever they talk about dragon, they speak in Valyrian, because the conversations about dragon are only meant for people who can control them.
Yep. And for instance, I know that the dragon like herders, they only speak Valyrian because because the dragons only can get commands in Valyrian, and they can risk their lives by like going back and forth. They can't code switch. It's like, I got to speak Valyrian all times because I'm dealing with these dragons on a day-to-day.
Right, but to make it that important in one sense, but then when he gets to the small council, to undermine the fact that, I got to be honest with you, regardless of how many people you got on your side, if he had 30 or 40 dragons, he sent 5 of them to show up like, hey, these dragons are protecting this ship. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Even with Daemon having one, having one dragon, it's I think his dragon is like the biggest dragon left.
But even then, it's like the Hand of the King shows up to Dragonstone with Daemon, and he's shocked that the dragon showed up. Like, what are we talking about here? Like,
he left on him.
The ancestral home of the Targaryens, there's a dragon there. Really? Yeah, I expected as much.
I would expect him to still have stolen more eggs. Right. Just to have, I'm gonna have 4 of them just in case they come through.
What's going on here? Like that's the thing. It's like they wrote episode 2 as a collection of scenes, and each scene got the best reaction out of you. But as they play together, it doesn't make a lot of narrative sense. It's like, yeah, I get it. Okay, so like the scene after Daemon gives back the egg, and so and they're in the room that looks like the map room from Game of Thrones.
Yep, and he's talking to the his girl.
Exactly. So she's berating him because she doesn't trust his ability to protect her, right? She goes, I've been sold my entire life since I've been around, and this, that, and the other, and I don't want someone, he won't behead you, but he'll behead a common whore who has a bastard kid. But then she goes, I'm with you because I thought of freedom. He goes, of what? And she goes, of fear. So it undermines the entire narrative she just gave. She's with him because she believes in his ability to protect her, but she's berating him about his ability, her lack of faith in his ability to protect her. What exactly is the point of this conversation? What are we talking about?
It's funny also that she believed that she can't get pregnant. Like she can will herself not to get pregnant and have a child.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, I don't have children. Like, what do you mean? How? Like, what is it? Like, how do we do this?
And what was Damien's end goal? Like, okay, let's say
I think it's just attention, just being an asshole, just for attention.
Okay, so let's play it out though. Okay, he steals the egg because he's getting married tomorrow. The chick he's apparently supposed to marry doesn't know that she's not pregnant. Let's say the king showed up. King showed up. Is he gonna pull together a wedding last second? What if the king just said, okay, you know what? Hey, look, it's a small price to pay. You're already a dragon rider. You already got a dragon. If you're gonna have a kid, it can ride a dragon. Like that's fine. You're accepting the fact that you're no longer the heir to the throne. He shows up. Like what happens?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like, it was compelling in that scene, but it's like, well, what was his plan? Like there was no nefarious plan that he ever explained. Like, oh, I was expecting this to happen, but my plans were thwarted because my niece showed up instead of my brother. It's like, well, where was it gonna go?
Like it was just, I think he's just being an asshole, and I think that's what they're trying to show. But I don't like that the way they're making him a villain. They're making him like a slapstick villain, like kind of like in a Batman, the old Batman TV show. Like, oh, you got me, Batman. Like the Joker and the Riddler. Remember it all? And then they would defeat them by the end of the episode. It's like it felt real villainy like that. And maybe I know I read the source material for us. They didn't. He is somewhat like this, but not the way they're making him be with this.
So I mean, I agree with your assessment of how they wrote his character. I don't think their intent in the show is for him to be the villain.
No, he's not. But he's not the villain.
I know that's okay. The Hand of the King is the villain.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think they're making him as likable as possible.
And actually the real villain we haven't even seen yet.
Right. But I think what they're doing is they're trying to misdirect us into believing that TV
that
show
Daemon is the villain.
He's the villain. But that's the thing though. It's like Matt Smith is too likable as an actor to really be the villain. You know what I mean? Like I'm about to say something really controversial here.
Go ahead.
He's my favorite Doctor Who.
He's
my favorite Doctor Who. So, I know it's supposed to be David Tennant, but I'm telling you, Matt Smith is my favorite Doctor Who. So don't at me. But
okay. But it's interesting, this world that we're in. And I think they do have some runway for some things. Like I think that crab eater or crab dude, he wasn't there. He was just a little bit in the books. And I think they're leaning towards him being it would be dope if they did like a lost Targaryen, like a castaway bastard Targaryen, because the way that they were like, he was like, no, don't worry about it. It was like, really? Like, it just makes me think like he knows something else maybe about that person. And he's like, that's our uncle that we done talk about, son, and we casted him away. And that, I'm kind of like trying to let him get in some room, or he could just be just a crazy person.
That would be an interesting spin. I mean, that was something that particularly people who read the books wouldn't see coming. I mean, so
yeah. I mean, it's well. So what do you think? What do you think about Corlys as a character in general?
I mean, wig aside, his decision making process makes the most logical sense out of everyone. Like, he's a powerful person. He doesn't have, the royal. He married into royal hierarchy. He thought in doing so it would strengthen his position, or at least his children's position, to be heir, particularly when the king didn't have any male heirs. And so all those things fail. So all his machinations have kind of fallen to the wayside. And then, quite honestly, he's over here like, man, look, I don't want my money to be messed up because we over here, sitting on our hands. So again, I understand that. The problem I have is that they made him too overt in his dissension against the king and his mistrust in the king. So him because he backed Daemon as the heir to the throne in the first episode.
Yeah.
So now that you snuff him again by not marrying his daughter, how does no one not see the play that he's going to go to Daemon? Like, that play should be super obvious to everyone. He storms out after they announce who the king's actually going to marry, and he's already had this private session with the king, asking to speak freely. So it's like no one puts anything in context.
But I wonder if they're running a roundabout game, because if Rhaenyra is supposed to be the smartest one in the realm, like when it comes to tactical things, and she's been real quiet. So I'm wondering if he's like running this side, and then you're gonna see her run the other side of like, oh, my husband tripping type thing, like where we work in both angles.
That's possible. I mean, that's possible. And
maybe that's why he is overt. That they be like, we got all our bases covered, just in case it goes this way, we got it, and if it goes this way, we got it.
And I hope that you're right. I really do. I hope that you're right. I hope that these characters have been more thought out and more thoughtfully planned than I have observed them to be in these first 2 episodes. That would absolutely change my opinion and assessment of not only the series but the season itself. But it's just that they've been so overt and obvious about all the stuff. Like they did this whole scene where Corlys is talking, and they're slowly panning as if it was a surprise he was talking to Daemon. Who the hell else he would be talking to? Like he had no one else to talk to. Like the only person he could have possibly been talking to.
Is it also we're a victim of being fans of the original series, where we like kind of already the twist is coming. Yeah. For someone that has not watched these, I wonder if they aren't as intense into it as we are. Do they like get caught into it as much as us?
See, and this is why I refuse to believe that there are people out here that are excited to watch a new HBO series about Game of Thrones that didn't watch the first series.
It's people that are. My wife is.
But is she right? Okay, but is she willing to watch it, or is she excited to watch it?
Oh, she's willing. That's a difference.
That's what I'm saying. Like they didn't spend this much. They didn't spend this much money for this episode and the actors they got for her. No offense.
No, it's for
us, right? Right. So it's like, and hopefully we'll get other people to watch it. But it's like most of the people who are going to consume this have consumed the other series. So that slow pan, it's like we know enough about the series to know that, well, who else could he be talking to? And then in episode 2, it's not like they set it up where he was a very sympathetic character to the other people in the small council. He's already on the outsides to the small council. There's very much a dynamic where the majority of the small council are going to go along with what the king is, and he's the dissenter. So after he's been slighted, it'd be one thing if they did that before he was hedging his bets against the king marrying his daughter.
Like if you showed him talking to Daemon before and then came back.
Exactly. But doing it afterwards, it was like, who else the hell was going to talk to? Like, where else would he go? No one. There's nowhere else to go.
And you may not want to I said you may not want to beef at the series, because a lot of people did not like this book written wise from George R. Martin overall. Like a lot of people didn't like it compared to everything else. Like some of these complaints you're saying and some of the things people said in there is it gets the real villain, and I don't want to spoil for anybody, but the real villain gets real somewhat mustache twirling, like become like like that traditional, like, oh, here he is, like and some of the backhanded things that happen maybe you see them earlier because you just a Game of Thrones person. Like, oh, okay, they're friends now. But the like with her and her handmaid, like we was like, as soon as she went to go see her dad, we was like, oh, the fix is in. Like,
but even that, it's like, well, okay, so they do things that are, and I can concede because I had a little bit more insight as to where things were going. Maybe I'm not viewing it as honestly as some other viewers are, but they make it a point for him to say, I'm concerned what Rhaenys would think about me getting married again. And then he makes a decision that would most likely piss her off. You know what I'm saying?
The most likely scenario, like the worst of them, like of all your choices.
Exactly. So
you really could have married her and she wouldn't have tripped.
Exactly. It's like, so what the hell was you? So you really didn't care what she thought at all. And then when he makes that statement, when one of the maesters, he's talking to the hand and the maesters when they're trying to fix the issue with his pinky, and he goes, well, I don't want to do that because I'm concerned with my daughter thinks. And he goes, well, who cares what she thinks? Her mother's dead. You know, you have a obligation to the realm. And then he acts as if that was a harsh thing to say. And then he chooses the harshest possible choice. It's like, oh, okay. So
like, I get him not necessarily going the Corliss route. Like, I get that. Like, yo, like she is 10. Like, I get that. But to go to the best friend, that's like use a lot of more off ramps before there. I'm sure.
I hear you, and I do not mean this to sound creepy at all. Okay, but I'm talking about what was said in the show. In the show, they say she's 12, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. And they said I didn't have to bed until I was 14.
Exactly. But he's marrying a 15-year-old. So per his
book, she's 18 though. That's the thing, and he's like 32.
But she's not in the show. She's the same
age
as his daughter. She's 15. And so in the show, he's not ready to move on for the death of his wife and the loss of his son. He's not ready to marry again because of obligation to the realm. He has an opportunity to satiate the ambitions of a very powerful potential foe, but currently an ally. And in doing so, he can wait 2 or 3 more years before he actually has to enact. He could promise marriage today, marry her, and then leave her alone. Exactly. And then not have to have any more heirs right now. Have several years to actually absorb the loss of his wife and the loss of his son, and then also satiate everybody. It winds up being a better decision because
he can let her go mess with someone else and have a kid and just claim it.
Exactly.
Like if he didn't want to even like do anything, like go mess with somebody else, I'll claim the kid like a surrogate.
Exactly. Because his solution, it wasn't like his solution was to marry an actual adult woman. His solution was to marry a 15-year-old. It's like, what's the it felt like it, like you could see Otto Hightower just doing like this. Is like you felt like you was gonna see a scene with him like this, like right,
gotcha, like.
Right. So, I'm not gonna marry a 12-year-old and wait 3 years. I'm gonna marry a 15-year-old today. It's the same thing, right?
Do you think that I wonder if they're leaning into this subtly? Is the racism of it all? Like I wonder if they're subtly hinting at that, especially with the Corliss character making him black, and then him saying he had this hard living, he had to come up from the mud, you know, and nothing was given to him. He was living on the Targaryens. They didn't give him he was like from a 20th floor house, you know, in Valyria and everything, and had to work his way up. Are they leaning a little bit? And it's like, dang, you just keep shutting out the brother, and then you pass over the queen twice. Is it because she got a black husband?
I mean, again, I think that's another example of them taking real.
But it's like subtle though. It's like
right.
like subtly right there to like make you think if you don't really read the books or know anything about the world.
But that's the thing. They're taking, for the TV show, they're taking real world politics and applying them to a world where it wouldn't necessarily matter. You know, like the issues that we face in our world wouldn't necessarily apply in a world where there's dragons and magic and, you know, one thing I will say this right before I feel that point. Yeah. I hope to see Melisandre because she's still alive. Like she was like 200 or something years old.
Yeah.
I was like her as an actual young woman, like not a magically.
She'd be like 18 or something, right?
Yeah,
like,
I know. Yeah. Hopefully she makes a show under the show. But
that'd be dope.
That'd be a
I
hell of
didn't
an
think
Easter
about
egg.
that. I think about what character would be alive, and
Yeah.
she would be.
Yeah, that'd be a hell of an Easter egg. But yeah, I mean, that's the problem I have is that they pull on our heartstrings by applying real world politics and situations that don't necessarily make sense given the world that they've built. And I do not like inconsistency in storytelling.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking online. They said it's possible she could come in season 2.
That would be great. That'd be a great Easter egg.
Yeah. So yeah, they said that'd be dope if they just have her pop up, even like doing a little bit of magic or something. You like, oh, you would. So or maybe she gets insight into something where she's nosy or something, and they find out about these White Walkers, and that's how her journey goes of her trying to find the prince that is promised herself.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that'd be awesome. And now, okay, so I talked about things I hated. I will say something I did like. I like the allegory that they present about, sitting on an iron throne isn't for the weak, and then they make
And
it
how the blades are cutting him up.
exactly, yeah. So they're physically manifesting.
But then it's a mental one for other people. So it's
Yeah.
physically it cuts him, but then other people that sit in the Iron Throne, they go crazy,
Yeah.
or they get depressed, or all of it.
Yeah. So I really do like that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate them. It's a cut on his pinky, I believe it is, and so now they see how his lack of care has caused it to fester and become worse. And so now 6 months later, this small nick that was a nothing moment, now it's getting worse, and now they're saying, oh, now we have to put in maggots in order to save the digit because the 6 months later has passed and it still hasn't healed. And so how that compounding effect of the inadequacy or the ineffectualness of sitting on the Iron Throne, snowballs. I like that component, particularly having an idea, at least a general idea of where it's supposed to go based upon the books and the first
it's I love that allegory of it. Like, oh, you every time he's not even fit to be king, that's why he keeps getting cut up. Like, oh, okay, it makes sense.
And that was my favorite. That was actually my favorite quote of the series so far, but definitely episode 2, when Corlys is talking to Daemon, and I forgot what he said to Daemon. But he goes, "Yeah, it's never been my brother's strong point." And he goes, "What? Being king."
Period. Like, period. His whole existence. And another thing that I think some people haven't realized, his dragon died after he first rode it, which was the biggest dragon, and he has no dragon now.
Yeah.
And think about it. It's you had the biggest, toughest, oldest dragon. You ride him one time and he dies.
Yeah.
Like, like that, but that don't show you ain't supposed to be king. Like, that's like showing up first day as a CEO, and they like, hey man, like 20 people quit. Like the first day.
Yeah.
Like,
we're not doing this. We're not about to do this.
Yeah, like I didn't even enact anything yet. I didn't even do that. They just didn't like me like at all. And so they said he was supposed to be like 2 times as big as Drogon.
Yeah. Like, the head of his dragon is in
the crypt.
In the crypt, yeah, in the original season. That's the huge head that I think it was Joffrey when we first see it. Joffrey goes down there into the crypt.
Yeah, and it's in there when he talks to his daughter too, and he asks her because he talks about the head like, "Hey, yeah, this is I think it's Balerion the Black Dread, or I forgot his name. I think it's something like that, Balerion." Yeah. But I was like, man, your dragon dies the first time you ride it. Wow, like, and you got the biggest, toughest one,
right?
And he was like over 200 years old. He had been through king after king after king.
Yeah, he was. He was the. I think he said he was the last living creature to remember old Valyria.
Yep. Like, dang, and it makes you think because the Targaryens weren't high, they weren't upper class in Valyria. That's the thing. Is like, it has the real semblance of how colonization was. Like, they weren't even the highest people where they were, but they came here, became powerful, and now you run the whole area.
They were one of many bloodlines that could control and tame dragons. They were just the ones that survived
and left
into an area where no one could. So then now that skill set winds up being super rare and important. But it was old hat in old Valyria. Again, I think that's a much more.
Valyria would have been. Or do you think the budget for old Valyria wouldn't have been there? Because you got to have dragons like everywhere, like cars.
I mean, I think that the attempt to do it would be more important than the ability to execute to a certain standard. Because you wouldn't, because you'd have so many dragons, you wouldn't have to have the level of detail and interaction because they would be commonplace. So, in the world where someone riding a dragon is, important and impressive, that's one thing. But if there's 1,000 dragons, I think he said there were, at the height, then you just have people. No one's afraid of dragons. Multiple people can ride dragons. They're not treating them as if it's anything special. It's just, and then because we're not even talking about the magic, because even now, 100. I guess what is this? I forgot how long ago it is after old Valeria. So maybe 200 years, 150 years later.
There's only been three other kings since they came.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it starts off saying we're 100 years into the Targaryen rule. So, so now we're 100, maybe 120, 100, 130 years afterwards. The point is that because the world has changed so drastically, it's a feat to everyone else. But but also let's not forget all the magic that was lost, because the magic users and wielders aren't very common now, even now 100 years later.
True. So, right. Melisandre, like we talk about, Melisandre is one of them, right?
So the world has changed. So they could have made up a lot more on it with the magic and just had the dragons only be break in case of emergency type of stuff, because old Valeria had a lot more things. They had the Valyrian steel, they had magic wielders, they had dragons. It's like there's so much stuff going on. The importance of the dragons, I wouldn't think it would be as you wouldn't have to scrutinize it as much personally.
Yeah, I always wonder why wouldn't a show or even like this and I'm surprised no one has not tried to decide to do this in any TV show, period, is do the Godfather 2 effect, where you could tell your current story, but also dip into the past story at the same time and have those parallel storylines leading you back. And you can see how you got to the beginning of this, but also continue the storyline of this.
That would be awesome.
Like, so think if they showed like the original first Targaryens coming over, but then you don't have to get so much in the minutiae of this going on now here with this.
Yeah. No, I mean, that would be awesome, man. I mean, first off, Godfather 2 is literally my favorite movie of all time.
It's the best story ever told. Like how it goes back and forth in their parallel stories.
I named my dog after the Godfather. The fact.
So let's jump into what do you think about the daughter overall, Rhaerys?
I like the actress. I like how she presents in the scenes. I don't have any problems with her or her character. I have a problem with how people respond to her character given how they wrote her. It's like, she's in the small council suggesting that the dragon riders to go do something about the steps staying islands.
Yeah, with the crab dude.
Yeah. And so then he's shocked that she goes. He knows she has this great relationship with her uncle, and her uncle steals, and she's the one who picks up on that. Her uncle stole the egg that was meant for her brother Balon or Balin. I forgot how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Balin.
But and so then he's so shocked and surprised, like she left without him. But it's like, without his permission. It's like, well, she rides dragons. Like she carries the world's nuclear arms between her legs. Like you think she was oblivious to the fact of the power that she actually had? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
and that was the only way it was going to work to them to get it back, is if she showed force showing up with that dragon.
Right, but he's completely discounting the fact that her and her uncle have a pretty good relationship.
Oh, right. She's a good diplomacy ticket as well.
Because who he sent the Hand of the King, who Daemon hates. The only thing we got in episode 1 is that Daemon and the Hand hate each other. So, hey, don't send me. I'm your brother. I'm the one who's turned a blind eye to you taking over Dragonstone, even though I banished you back to your home and your wife 6 months ago. But
you still haven't shown up, though. Still haven't shown up there, though.
Right. So what I'm going to say now in an effort of diplomacy is the person you hate most in the kingdom. What sense does that make?
Well, I mean, I know Otto Hightower was supposed to have been a great knight and all that, but this still ain't the move. Like, this ain't the move.
But he and Daemon hate each other.
Yeah. That's the least person. That's the last. If you had to line up the whole court, He should have been at the end of this line to get sent. You could have sent Corliss before him even.
It's analogous. It's analogous to going this in the first series. Oh, hey, look, I'm having an issue with the Hound, so I'm going to send the Mountain to go negotiate with him. What? What are we doing? What are we doing here?
That's right. Or I have an issue in Dorne. I'm going to send the Mountain.
Right. Yeah.
Like, whoa, what? The Mountain killed the Dornish queen, princess. Like that was the reason that Oberyn Martell showed up in the first place.
The only thing we actually know about their relationship is that they almost got into a fight in the small council in the first episode. That was the last interaction we saw between them. Oh yeah, but I'll send him to go negotiate peace. And Hightower didn't do anything to be anything.
I thought they were going to try to do a switcheroo here on this because I know we had to get to the point where he was marrying his daughter. I wonder if they were going to veer away from the books and have him go there and get killed, and it'd be a situation I have to take your daughter, in customary where the man, the whatever other man needs to take his daughter on to make sure she's all right and marries her because of that. I thought they were going to try to shoehorn some shit like that in there.
I mean, at least that would explain some of that would explain him flip-flopping. Because
he's like, I got to take care of my boy's daughter.
Yeah, he asks everybody their opinion on him, and not one person mentions Hightower's daughter and the decision. And he asks, "Give me your honest opinion. Give me your honest opinion." And everyone goes, "Yeah, you should marry her. You should marry her. You should marry her." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm marrying Hightower's daughter." Like, what the hell did you ask all these questions for then?
And maybe Hightower. Or maybe they need to show them maybe that this decision should have maybe been moved down a little bit, because you could develop and show them over time talking more and more. Like you only seen them talk 2 episodes for them to make this rash decision, or you had to either have them had already entered the series with a relationship where it's like, oh yeah, we read every night together while his wife was alive, where you could be like, oh, they must have had already bonded previously before these moments.
And then a deviation from the book. She's not as calculating in the show as she is in the book.
On the book, she's stone cold.
Right. But then they make it a point to show that she's doing the weird thing with her nails and her fingers.
Yeah.
And so they make it seem as if she's uncomfortable doing it, but she's so good at doing it. So it's so confusing because the things that she's doing aren't overtly sexual or flirtatious. They seem very genuine and compassionate. But then they show her doing the things with her nails. So it's like, well, is she nervous? Is she uncomfortable doing it? They don't really flesh out exactly what her position is.
Unless they flip it and show that she did that to make herself look like that because that was the game she wanted to play. That made people think she was timid.
Well, maybe.
I hope they do that. Like, I mean, they're gonna have to do that for me to believe this. Like,
that would make more sense because she didn't seem smug when he chose her in episode 2. She seemed genuinely embarrassed that she had to do this duty for her father, and it worked out for her to become the king, and her betrayal, air quote, betrayal of her friend. So it's like, I don't understand what the self-mutilation is about.
Yeah. That doesn't. Yeah, that one doesn't make. That one definitely doesn't make sense at all. So what do you think about the character of Daemon? Daemon. I'm gonna call him Daemon.
I love him. He's my favorite. He's my favorite. Like,
hey, shout out to Sleepy last week. We called him Blue Lives Matter.
He's confident. He's cocky. He doesn't take himself he's serious enough when he has to be, but doesn't take himself so serious he can't crack a joke. He creates boundaries. Like, he's the second favorite quote. I'll speak about my brothers. I wish you won't. Nailed it.
And think about it, he sat in the Iron Throne and was laid up in it and didn't get cut.
Right.
I mean, he was laid up in it, his legs kicked up, like the whole nine.
Absolutely, easily my favorite part of the movie. On show, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and my thing is, if you didn't want similar to what I forgot who said it on the council, but he was like, you gave him 3,000 troops to train over the last couple of years, and then he got them all to leave and they're loyal to him. What do you think was going to happen? You made them all Blue Lives Matter. Like, you just made them all go to Dragonstone. Like, They was going to follow him.
Right. And he wasn't a person that restricted their worst impulses. He was a person that let them lean into. He encouraged their worst impulses.
He was like, "Look, as long as you come to work on time, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do on your off time."
Right. He basically made the gold cloaks Judge Dredd. I am the law. You know what I mean?
And I go out and fuck on the weekends.
Exactly. In a society where they haven't had any major battles or confrontations, where everybody's chomping at the bit to actually get some action. Like what? Again, it takes away from the king's competence, and then also it takes away from his competence. But it's like a person that incompetent in making decisions wouldn't make such a decision that flies in the face of all the advice he's getting. And I think that's where I can't understand. The king seems to blindly follow.
You know what I think he thinks, though, Scott? I think he thinks this is my first proactive choice, is by going against everyone else and doing what I want to do, and you know what? It's not even that. I think it's more reactionary. Of like, everybody else want me to do that, I'm gonna do the opposite. Just like with the Daemon thing, I'm gonna make my daughter the heir because it's the opposite.
I mean, I hear you, but
because he thinks he has power, and then I think that's where he thinks his power is that I can reject everything and do whatever I want.
Did I remind you that he cut his wife open from vagina to sternum in the first episode? Like, that's a hell of a decision.
Without her knowing.
Right. Like, against her will, without extra anesthesia. Like, that's a hell of a decision. Like, hell of a decision.
Do you think the daughter knows that that's how it went down?
I can't believe that she does. I
can't believe that she does.
I can't believe that she does. That's not the kind of thing you forgive.
I'm wondering if that's going to be a thing where he's going to tell, I forget, let me see her name, Alicent Hightower, that's what happened. She's going to throw it up in the face of her, and then she's going to turn against her pops.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm
talking about her in this, like, he's laying in bed, pillow talking. It was like, and then she says she's pregnant, and then he's like, I don't want to have to do you like I did.
But that's not a thing you would tell your second wife. You would not tell
your second wife. We're talking about King Viserys. We're talking about King Viserys here. Everything he does doesn't make sense.
You would not, why would you tell your new wife that's pregnant with your child, I lost my old wife because I chose the baby over her and basically impaled her with knives to pull the baby out? Like, why would you tell her that? Because
he does stuff like that.
That would be insane.
Or some way she's going to find out what really went down, I think.
I mean, yeah, probably. Now, again, a drunk maester, one of the people there, something like that, or a maester who's trying to see dissension between him and his wife, that makes more sense. Him saying those words to his new wife makes no sense.
Him being the breed of, okay.
Exactly. That makes no sense. There's no scenario in which I'm going to accept that he would say that to her.
Well, so what do you think about a little bit about her father, Otto Hightower?
I obviously hate him.
You said what now?
I hate him.
Already.
Yeah, I hate him. I hate his guts.
He feels like a Tywin, doesn't he? On the low, like that.
But he's not. At least so. Tywin was intentional and overt, and you could at least respect his position. He made no qualms about who he is and what his intentions were. This guy is kind of he's like Littlefinger.
Oh, okay.
He's too Littlefinger for me. Because it's like, okay, like in the first episode when he comes and tells the king, your brother said, heir for a day. Well, I mean, it was uncouth, but it was accurate. It was an accurate assessment of what happened, Or then when he says that, oh, he's getting married. So who is this lady? I forgot her name. Daemon's whore. Like everything he says, he presents everything in a way to get the reaction that's most favorable to the outcome that he's looking for. And everyone seems to be oblivious to it. Like no one ever had any questions like, yo, hold up. When you just decided to take the hand of the king's daughter as your next wife? Like, what's
Like,
gonna
hold
happen?
on, like, isn't this some kind of like some kind of like crossing of the signals we don't want? And you got to remember, and he's going outside the box because the kings traditionally have not married anyone from Westeros.
Right.
They've only married other Valerians.
And there's always a courtship. Like, let's be clear. Regardless of how young she is, she's his cousin's daughter. And they still had a formal courtship at her parents' home in order for it to be above board. He's sending his daughter to go see the king privately. The king is telling her, don't tell my daughter that we're seeing each other. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all under and no one had any questions. Okay, well, how the hell did this happen? You just decided.
Like, what it is? Like, nobody knew. Y'all didn't write this down and that this was going to happen. Like, everyone knew of the courtship before. Like, okay, like you said, it was above board.
Exactly. Yeah. No one ever discussed it. You've had all these conversations about you. First off, you resisted the fact that you had to take a new queen in the first place. Then, after you ask everyone's opinion about who you should take, you choose a person who no one ever mentioned. We never had a conversation about, and then no one asks any questions. That's kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, what? How is it? How is this the outcome that's happening? No one has any questions as to the outcome is happening.
Zero questions at all. Like, that's like, nah, like, I don't even know what y'all even talking about.
Right.
Like, yeah, that's that. I didn't even think about that aspect, that it was actually a formal courtship previously with the other one, where it was like, hey, let's get to know each other. This is gonna work. You know, make your decision.
It'd be one thing if it wasn't the hand of the king's daughter, but like, no one thought the hand planned this. No one says that. No one, not Corliss. No one. He doesn't look.
Oh, you know what?
You know what I'm saying? No one says this. Like, it was very obvious. Okay.
I wonder if the thinking now. I wonder if the Otto sent himself to Dragonstone so he could look like he wasn't involved in this situation that happened. Like, I wasn't even there when all this was going down. Like, I don't know.
Right, but
like to obligate to take yourself away from the area of, like, even though he's still like trying to tinker, I wasn't even there when all this was going on. What?
Right, and I could accept that if the king doesn't ask. I think her name is Lena, their daughter, Corliss's daughter.
Leanna, you talking about the Otto's daughter?
No, Corliss's daughter.
Yeah, Leanna.
Leanna, sorry, yeah, Leanna.
Yep.
So in this moment, she gives that statement about, I'll be it's an honor to marry you and be your queen, and I'll give you a lot of kids. It's another. He goes, your father asked you to say that. Then he goes, what did your mother ask you to say? But then he marries or proposes to Hightower's daughter and doesn't even have the idea that maybe the hand of the king sees an opportunity to have his daughter create the heir of the next ruler of the throne. Because if Otto doesn't die, let's be honest, the king's life is tenuous at best. He has that sore on his back. You know what I'm saying? He may lose a digit because of infection. Like, Otto could be thinking, yo, what better deal would be if he marries my daughter and creates a male heir? He dies. I could basically assume the throne until
my it's a regent. I could be the regent as
exactly.
Like,
no one plays that out. No one plays that out. Even morbidly going being suspicious. Like, man, I don't want to say it, but that would be messed up. Like, no one even just mentally
like somebody whispering, like, he would be like regent for like 15 years if this go down. Like, if he dies until the kings of age.
And then he chooses Otto's daughter after Otto having that weird conversation about why he shouldn't choose Elena, in front of the maester when he's getting his finger worked on. It just seems a little bit too convenient. Like, it was too much.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder to a certain extent. And even though it makes you wonder, it's obvious they're making it obvious that they should have chose Rhaenyra as the queen after the queen is passed over twice, because she got passed over twice. Right. She got passed over for the previous king and then her cousin on this side. Now I guess they're trying to set up of like, yeah, we kind of this is why the Targaryens fell off, and this is why we need Daenerys,
right,
to in the bloodline to step up and become that. Right. And it's gonna be interesting though, because that's got to not flow well within the Targaryen, Valerian people. Like, yo, hold on, our king, because they'll marry even obviously cousins and sisters and brothers and stuff to keep that bloodline pure. And you're going out and marrying a Hightower,
right? And obviously,
right? Like if you're not the king, you can, like, obviously Damien's first wife is out in the Vale, is from the Vale, but he ain't supposed to be in the crown, so he can do whatever. He can be married to whoever.
But I mean, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but I know you know the reference I'm getting to. But who he actually takes as his second wife, it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I was okay. But here's the thing: if everyone's okay with that, why don't you just propose that the first time? You see what I'm saying? Like think about the beef that they had in the first episode, and then you think about the outcome that ultimately happens. Why don't you just propose that?
Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah, like, everyone's okay with it, so it's like, well.
Why don't we just run that route?
Yeah, we just run out. Yeah, it's fine. Like, best of both worlds.
All right, last up, I wanted to talk about what do you think about like this council versus previous council, the other councils we've seen in Game of Thrones? Or have we not been with them long enough to really kind of?
I say we've not been with them long enough. I would say that in previous councils, they made it a point for all of the small council to have their own ideology and personality, and they introduced us to them and the way that they ran their lives or their machinations outside of the small council. Mm-hmm. So we learned that the Maester was actually a relatively fit old man who was vigorous, and vibrantly, and he put on a facade of being a decrepit older guy. We found out what Littlefinger and Varys's, what they did behind the scene. Obviously we found out what Tyrion did. We knew who Ned Stark was. So they introduced all these characters and to make sure that we understood everyone's position in the small council. They haven't done that in this world. They basically have us the head of the King's Guard. We have Otto. We have Corlys, and the Maesters are there. But I don't get any. So one of them has to be a master of coin. He barely says anything worth importance.
And we got Corlys over ships, master of ship.
Yeah, and so they've only really introduced two characters to be important in that small council, and then obviously they made the daughter as an observer, and quite honestly, she's made even her silence in those meetings, her movements, and the fact that we learn that she's listening and trying to observe and pick up stuff. That winds up having more actual, I think, overall story importance than I would say the expositions that we get to advance the plot. So they, because most of the stuff they say in the small councils are just kind of filling us in. Oh, it's been 6 months since your wife died, and this guy's dead now. And also, the 6 months that we worried about the stuff that was happening in the Sandstones, and now it's gotten even worse. So they're not really saying anything of any real importance other than just to inform the viewer that time has passed, and this is what the state we're in now for this conversation. But I guess
we haven't really got to get in, and then we learned, like you said, more of their personal lives and more what was kind of going on with them, within the personalities of what they are. So what do you think for episode 3? What do you want to see?
Well, okay. What I like so I know there's another time skip coming. I'd like for them, since I believe they rushed the first 2 episodes. So it's a 10-episode season, right?
Yep.
I think that they've rushed the first 2 episodes. I would have liked to see them maybe stretch out this first time component to maybe 3 or 4 episodes. But since they rushed it so much to get to a point where we've already had the conflict with Daemon, we've already had the conflict with Corlys. I'd like for them to maybe start episode 3 at the least 4 to the final time skip where everyone's of the age that they're going to be for the remaining. Yeah. So that's why I hope that whatever happens in episode 3, it gets us past this part of the story so we can get to the final time skip.
Yeah, because I'm interested to see how this all is going to play out, especially with the time skip and the time jump. Yeah. Because I like the actress playing Rhaenyra.
I do too.
It's gonna be sad to see her, go. But I just need to see more from Alicia Hightower, man. Like her being like more devious at some point, because I don't like this hapless villainy or this I just came upon the crown thing. I need her to have a lot more, and they don't have to be like her, but a lot more. Man, what was her name? The main villain from the last one.
Cersei.
Cersei. Yes, she got to get some more Cersei in her.
Yeah, man. That's the thing. It's like they do this weird thing where, and that's one thing I really appreciated about Cersei. Cersei was a strong female character that was unapologetically evil. You know,
Yes.
She's just the villain. You know what I mean? And she relished in being the villain, and they didn't have to make the reason that she.
Well, no. She grew into that though, because at first she thought she was doing the right thing, and then after her sons died, and her kids died, she's like, "Fuck it."
No, true. No, I agree. No, I'm not saying she didn't have a journey to get there, but what I'm saying is that at a certain point she owned who she was.
Yes,
and what her intentions were. I don't like that they've painted Hightower's daughter as being an unwilling participant to be.
And Cersei's never been unintentional. She's always been in the game.
Like, he's not forcing her to be a prostitute. He's forcing her to be queen. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Fathers have a lot of desires for their daughters, and very rarely is be fucking queen. And
if you do, you like, man, look.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if a father's going to force you to do something, being queen of all that you survey is a pretty good thing to be forced into. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's forcing her to go to boot camp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or like you said, or sleeping with random people in the streets of Westeros or something. You get to be king, and he's dying.
Like, my parents had expectations of me, and it wasn't to be king. Like,
and the main thing is he's dying, though, Scott. Like, you may not even have to be with him. Like,
exactly. Come on now.
And you get all the power, and yeah. Man, let's wrap it on up. Where can people hit you up if you want them to hit you up, Scott?
Man, I'm not on social media.
There you go. All right, there it is.
This is on
Make you hit us up, Lando Cal Pod on Gmail. Lando Cal Pod on Twitter as well. And we'll be back next week. Sleepy be back with us. Maybe we can get Raven. She says she got 2 more weeks off. We'll see. We'll see if we can get her back before then. We need to get another woman to fill in, man. We can't just be going in. We might have to find another lady. So if there's any ladies that we know that are listening, you can fill in for Raven for 2 weeks if you email me, landocalpod@gmail.com. I'm not replacing you, Raven, before you. We just need a filler in just to give us that female perspective about it as well. So, and we'll be back soon. Peace.